And we have a vibrant primary in just 1 month. I would like to take this time to introduce some of those candidates that are going to be in this next election, because we do have Democrats on the ballot in 2018. When I call your name, would you please stand and remain standing? I want everyone to recognize you and who they're voting for come June 5th. Our Democratic nominee for Congress 5th District is Peter Joffrion. Running for governor is Walt Maddox. I believe Caitlin Cobb is here, who is a surrogate for her mom, Sue Bell Cobb. We have a surrogate for our Attorney General candidate, Chris Christie, Terry Wiggins. Standing in for Attorney General candidate Joseph Siegelman would be Parker Griffith if he was here. Our Secretary of State candidate, Heather Milam. Our Democratic nominee for Alabama Supreme Court, Place 4, Donna Smalley. And we have several candidates here for the Alabama legislature. Deborah Barrows, Kelsey Green, surrogate for Samuel Green, Representative Laura Hall, candidate for Senate Jonathan Hard, Terry Jones, J.B. King, Linda Meggs, Amy Wasaluka, school board nominee Jessica Fortune Barker. Limestone County Commission candidate Hanu Carl Hallam. Thank you all so very much. Thank you all. And good luck in your races. You may be seated. Madison County Democratic Women is the oldest and largest women's political organization in the state of Alabama. In 1961, after volunteering tirelessly for President John F. Kennedy's campaign and having no women allowed a seat on the county committee, a group of highly motivated and persistent women decided, if we can't have a seat at the table, we'll just build our own table. And the Madison County Democratic Women's Division was created. These dedicated foremothers were the foundation and the mentors of what is the growing and thriving organization that you see today. Since 2016, Madison County Democratic Women's membership and participation in campaigns in our community has grown by leaps and bounds. We still have our iconic Thursday luncheons. In addition to the Madison County Democrat women are hosting evening events as well. In 2016, Madison County Democratic Women's Summit brought the formation of task groups and directors to implement new programs, growing and sustaining membership, training volunteers, and fundraise to support our Democratic candidates. With the learning opportunities, we have presented everything from how to canvass, how to use Twitter as a campaign tool, and something as serious as sexual abuse awareness and prevention. Expert panels have spoken to us on how the Alabama legislature works and how to keep the fire burning after the Doug Jones race. Woo! We have candidate forums featuring in 2017 our U.S. Senate candidates, in 2018 gubernatorial candidates, Attorney General, State House and Senate, and even Huntsville municipal candidates will all be involved in Madison County Democratic Women's Candidate Forums. Since the induction of our 2018 Madison County Democratic Women's Office in January, we've been in high gear. Madison County Democratic Women have organized a political action committee called Persistence PAC and are looking forward to supporting our Democratic nominees in 2018. Our fundraising task group hit the ground running with a conversation with John Pavlovich in March, meeting and exceeding our goals, and there's much, much more to come. As a matter of fact, we're having a fundraiser on Father's Day evening, June the 17th at 7 o'clock at the New Grissom High School Theater, featuring Chicago's own Second City comedy troupe. And there'll be cards on your table. We are going to start our early bird ticket sales at 9 o'clock this evening, and you can go to our website, democraticwomenofmadisoncounty.com. We anticipate this event to be a sold-out crowd, so you need to get your tickets pretty quick. We have adopted the hashtag, teamwork makes the dream work. So tonight, I want to introduce our multifaceted dream team. Will the Executive Board of Madison County Democratic Women please stand? Will our task group directors please stand and remain standing? Everyone remain standing. Will our task group directors and members of each task group please stand? Anyone who has volunteered your time and your talents to this cause, and everyone that has contributed monetarily, please stand up. Yes, teamwork makes the dream work. Yes. I want to give a special thanks tonight to the former chair of Madison County Democratic Women, Sandra Rhodes. She has donated this beautiful original painting of President Kennedy, and it's being auctioned off tonight for the benefit of Madison County Democratic Women. So please bid generously. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our JFK Scholarship Chair, Eleanor Stodgrass, who will present our 2018 scholarship winner.
Good evening. Good evening. That's the way I like it. Before I introduce our scholarship recipient, I would like to thank our president, Mrs. Pam Miles, for the opportunity to serve as chair of the JFK Scholarship Award for 2018. Additionally, I would like to thank the committee that served with me. Would that committee please stand? Those of you who are here, please stand. Thank you. Lastly, I would like to thank Mrs. Lisa Handback, our communications director, for her untiring help. Where's Lisa? Thank you, Lisa, for all those emails. Now, Miss Lauren Hurd. Miss Lauren Jessica Hurd. This young lady is phenomenal. What do you say about someone who has missed only one day of school in 13 years? What do you say about someone who has been on the A honor roll all of her academic life? What do you say? What do you say about someone who has a GPA of 4.421 and a composite score of 30 on the ACT? What do you say? Well, I could say a lot, but it would take a while. But suffice it to say that she serves as a volunteer in the nursery at her church, Union Hill Primitive Baptist, and as a youth usher. She is also a member of the Ignite Teen Ministry and the church's youth auxiliary, just to name a few. Amidst her studies, which are mostly AP courses, she finds the time to serve as senior class president of the Student Government Association, president of the Civitan Club, National Honor Society secretary. She's on the Principal Advisory Committee. She is captain of the marching band color guard at Hazel Green High School. She is a member of the yearbook staff and the Junior Optimist Club. Moreover, Lauren has been a Bird on the Mountain camp volunteer, a volunteer and mentor for at-risk elementary students, a 50th Vietnam anniversary volunteer, a Huntsville Relay for Life volunteer, and a Special Olympics volunteer. Between April and November of 2017, Lauren earned 92.5 service hours. She has participated in summer engineering camps at Auburn University as well as the University of Alabama and the Girls, Gadgets, and Gigabytes STEM program. Folks, I could go on. Believe me, this is really the short version of her accomplishments. Her goal is to become a chemical engineer and to work in development and research in pharmaceutical science. I know she'll get there. Now, without further ado, let's welcome to the podium Miss Lauren Jessica Hurd.
Good evening. Today I will be reading my speech that I submitted to the for the scholarship. I feel truly blessed to have been born and raised in the United States of America. One of the greatest benefits of living in America are the freedoms and rights we have, such as freedom of speech, religion, the press, assembly, the right to vote, and the right to receive a quality education, just to name a few. These rights and freedoms were established by our founding fathers who believed there needed to be a set of safeguards in place to protect the rights of the American people. Therefore, the Constitution of the United States was written. The United States government is based on the Constitution and has an extremely important job that impacts not only the American people, but the world. Government has the authority and power to establish laws and make it possible for people to live and work together. However, in today's society, it is becoming more and more difficult to determine if the United States government and its present administration still hold the same principles of establishing laws to protect the people and make it possible for all Americans to live and work together for the good of the country. During the 2016 presidential campaign, there was a tremendous amount of separation among the American people. The tone of the presidential election was very negative, and there was a major shift in the culture. Social behavior such as the respect of persons and common courtesies began to fade away and appeared to be deemed irrelevant. Many of those running for the presidency of the United States of America were belittled and treated with a lack of dignity and respect. This behavior has continued since the presidential election, and the entire culture of what the United States should truly represent has shifted dramatically. From the current president lashing out at professional athletes such as football players for taking a knee during the national anthem, to having Twitter feuds with celebrities over petty nonsense, to a ban on Muslim countries' ability to enter the United States who were not even involved in the mass bombings that have taken place in the States, overturning the Planned Parenthood state funding mandate that was enacted under President Barack Obama, and to the selection of numerous cabinet members. The culture war in the United States is alive. This administration's position on issues very dear to the American people brings about a sense of dissension and uncertainty, pits political parties against political parties, and attacks the very foundation this country was built upon. Education is another area impacted by the president's administration. With the selection of Betsy DeVos as Secretary of Education, the president's proposed plans to cut the education budget, expand school choice, cut public schools programs, end the student loan forgiveness program, change the way federal Pell Grant money is used, and cut the funding to the college work-study program leaves the future of the educational system up in the air. With the rising cost of pursuing a higher education, many families rely on student loans and Pell Grants to cover the high costs associated with tuition, room and board, and other college expenses. Any changes to the systems put in place to assist in making college more affordable would negatively impact thousands of citizens. The United States, compared to other countries, is already behind in education, and according to the Program for International Student Assessment, in 2015, the United States ranked 38th out of 71 countries in math and 24th in science. These results are unimpressive and show that more attention and funding should be focused on education. More focus should be placed on educating our youth and young adults in order to prepare them for a future where they can compete with peers from other countries. With ever-growing use of technology and the negative impact it had on our 2016 election, it is vital that we educate and train our youth to be able to recognize appropriate cyber use and defend cyber attacks. Today's youth are the future of this country, and there is an urgency to ensure that all young people, regardless of race, religion, or socioeconomic background, have the right to a decent education. Parents should be able to send their children to schools within their community with the assurance that teachers and staff are qualified and have the appropriate tools and resources needed in order to do their jobs. One of the major areas of attack on the American family is with its finances. I grew up in a home where my parents taught me the importance of giving back to others, especially the least of us. I believe this is what our founding fathers desired when writing the Constitution. In order to form a more perfect union, promote general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. The current U.S. administration's policies include major tax breaks for large corporations, temporary tax breaks for individuals, attacks on the Affordable Health Care Act, raising housing payments for new homeowners, planning to deny overtime pay to millions, proposing to end the deferred action for childhood arrivals, and proposing a budget that will slash social services to millions of Americans. Thousands of Americans rely on these resources and programs to care for their families. Despite what some wealthy and uninformed people may believe, many Americans receiving services such as Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program do so to supplement the wages they currently receive because they are not enough to support their families. This idea that people are lazy and do not want to work is untrue. Most recipients of SNAP benefits that can work do work. This population is simply known as the working poor. In addition to SNAP, many Americans rely on other benefits such as Medicaid, All Kids, and temporary assistance to needy families. Removing or even cutting funding to these programs would cause hardship to millions of American families who rely on these services for their survival. With the economy booming and the unemployment rate on the decline, it would appear that social service organizations would be needed less. However, that is far from the truth. Huntsville, Alabama is a prime example due to its recent announcement of Bocar and the Toyota Mazda plant coming to the area. These openings mean thousands of jobs, which could be a great opportunity for individuals receiving government assistance if only they had the education, job training, and skills to apply. Instead of cutting these programs, it would be more economical to put money toward providing the training needed to assist individuals with obtaining the necessary skills so they can apply for these jobs. The current president ran on a slogan, "To make America great again." He promised the American people that we would win so much. However, it does not appear that the American people are the ones who are winning. Those on the winner's stand are the wealthy, large corporations, including Wall Street and youth in the Trump family. I believe there is a strong disconnect between the current administration and the needs of the American people as a whole. This administration lacks interest in issues that are important to the American family. Education, culture, and finances have been negatively impacted, and as a result, the American family, particularly those underprivileged, underrepresented, and those in poverty suffer. This causes a great divide amongst the people, bringing about classism, separation, and instability within the country. To some, the Trump administration brings hope. To others, fear and uncertainty. Whatever side on the fence you stand on, one thing is for sure: the American family has been impacted immensely by the policies of this administration. The culture within the United States has changed and influenced the way Americans treat and respond to one another. Certain courtesies of the past, such as respect and valuing the views and opinions of others, are becoming a thing of the past, and belittling and demeaning each other over social media has become acceptable. Our relationships with the world, even those we once called allies, is changing. The current state of America is questionable, and we are far from what our founding fathers established as the role of government: to establish laws and make it possible for people to live and work together. Thank you.
Jessica, thank you. We thank you, Jessica. On behalf of Madison County Democratic Women, Jessica, we would like to present to you this certificate of scholarship honoring you for the year 2018. God bless you. And we would also like to present to you a check, your scholarship award, in the amount of $1,000. Look at your dad.
Thank you, Laura. I know Lauren's parents are so proud of her tonight. And thank you, Lauren's parents, for raising such a wonderful young woman. Thank you so much. So now, please enjoy your dinner, and we'll be hearing from our keynote speakers shortly. Thank you.
As a Madison County Democratic woman, and as from last 2017. I'm just so honored to be in this position, to have an opportunity to introduce a really fine, great man of integrity, a justice warrior from forever, and you all know what that feels like. A man who had an incredible campaign team, just super talented people to organize and then expand out with a lot of love, and allowed all of us to join that team and be a part of something that was internationally spectacular. A model for people in many countries who are just looking for hope all over the world. So it's just an honor to be able to introduce our illustrious Senator Doug Jones of Alabama.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. First of all, I am honored to be here. It's not the first time that I have addressed Madison County Democratic women over the years, but I can tell you that this is probably the time where I'm most humbled to be your United States Senator and know, as I look out in that room, how many, so many people that worked on this campaign to make this dream of mine a reality. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I tell everyone that this is still surreal for me. For those of you who know me a long time, and we got folks in here that have known me a long time, isn't that right, RJ? I was just a little baby when I first met RJ. He started grooming me then, as a matter of fact. It's been truly, I will tell you, to walk off of the floor of the U.S. Senate as a 26-year-old staffer with Howell Heflin, and to walk back on as the U.S. Senator, followed by Joe Biden, and my colleague Tina Smith had Walter Mondale there. Is this a great country or what? That's all I can tell you. And let me say, too, to Jessica, our winner tonight, congratulations. And what a speech. I tell you, in the introduction they said, what can you say? Well, I know what I can say. I said, I think I found my next speechwriter. I appreciate all that you said. I want to spend just a minute tonight. Look, there are so many things that I'd love to be able to spend hours talking to you guys about. It has been such an incredible ride for me. 4 months ago today was when I was sworn in as United States Senator. 4 months, and it's just been crazy. We moved so quickly. We built a staff. Or some of you may have been in Washington. Some of you may have worked with our staff here. Rick Tate's here in our office in Huntsville. We put together a wonderful staff in Washington. We had a huge group from Madison County come up the other day. There were like 200, 250 folks. The Madison County Chamber, Athens, Limestone, Decatur, all folks. It was a big group. And they always have this breakfast. And I think that and the senators always invite other senators to come address the group. It's a wonderful opportunity to meet and talk with all the folks that are doing business to make this city as great as it is, to make this whole area as great as it is. And for the first time since 1996, that group got to listen to 2 Democratic U.S. senators. I thank you for that. It's been a wonderful ride for me. I'm thoroughly enjoying it every day when I'm in Washington. When I walk through the halls of the Senate office building, and the seat occupied by, that was Howell Heflin's seat, that was John Sparkman's seat before him. Every day when I get off that little train, that little subway car that I consider to be a roller coaster, and I hold my hands up and I go, I get off in the Capitol and I turn right. And I walk on to the Senate floor. As I walk up, I get about 3 feet apart, and there's 2 pages there, and they open these double doors. And I walk onto the Senate, and I get chill bumps every time. And it's because of you, each of you, that made the calls, that hit the streets, that called people, that did everything possible to get me elected. And I cannot begin to tell you how much my wife and I appreciate that so much. So I thought tonight I would do a couple of things. One, I want to talk a little bit about some things in the Senate, and then I want to talk about why we're here tonight and where we're going in the next few months, leading up to what I hope will be another historic election in the state of Alabama. So I want to tell you a little bit. I want to talk about a couple of things from just, and this is just kind of personal. I hadn't had a chance to really talk about the various things that have been going on. You know, I want to mention to you the most agonizing day that I've had in the Senate, the most disappointing day I've had in the Senate, and probably the most exciting couple of days that I had in the Senate. And they're pretty easy if I go back over the 4 months to pick those out. The most agonizing day was last week when I had to vote on the confirmation of Mike Pompeo. That's tough. It was the toughest vote I had to take. Now, folks, and look, y'all heard me during the campaign. Okay, you heard me say we're not always going to agree on everything, but let's agree to disagree and not be disagreeable. Well, you know, a lot of folks out there are disagreeable about that vote, and I get that. I understand that. There's a lot of passion. Well, let me tell you, folks, we face some very serious threats around this globe, and we've got to do everything that we can to protect our national interests. We also have a unique role to play, a unique role in maintaining the stability of our allies and diminish bad actors who would do us harm. I would commend to each of you a book. Bill Baxley gave me this book about 3 weeks ago, and I finished it up, and I'd commend it to you. It's called Harry and Arthur. It's about the relationship between Democrat Harry Truman and Republican Senator Arthur Vandenberg, and how together, even though they were in bitter partisan domestic fights, with Congress going back and forth between Democrats and Republicans, and Harry Truman, not expected to win re-election, but did, they forged a unique alliance to forge what I think is the greatest foreign policy coups the world has ever known. And those were the United Nations, the Truman Doctrine, the Marshall Plan, and the NATO Treaty Alliance. Those things that saved this world after World War II from communism. Read that and talk about how they did those things. And our State Department is really the driving force behind many of the efforts that continue today. And we needed to fill a leadership vacuum. This vote was the toughest I had to make. But I will tell you, I took a good look at the decisions with a close eye. That's my job. With all available facts, I read the transcripts, I went through the history, I knew the pros, I knew the cons, and I'll tell you tonight, just like I said during the campaign, and I say to every group, no matter who I'm with, I'm not a rubber stamp. I'm not a rubber stamp for the president. I'm not a rubber stamp for anybody. My job is to be an independent voice for each of you, to do what I think is right. You know, I got a letter from Mo Brooks. And Mo has known Mike Pompeo, and they were friends, and he was telling me to vote for him because of their friendship, which I appreciated. But then he also said, you know, the president deserves his choice, and you promised to reach across the aisle, so you need to vote for him. Well, that completely misunderstands the role of a United States Senator, which is probably why he finished a distant third in the primary. Because I'm not supposed to be a rubber stamp for the President of the United States, no matter who it is. And I'm not supposed to be a rubber stamp for anybody. So after meeting, and look, I knew Mike Pompeo's history. I knew, and for those of you that know my family, you know that it was personally offensive to me and my family about the things that he has said, not just about the Muslim community, but the LGBTQ community. It was personally offensive. I found all of that abhorrent. But that's not the end of the discussion. But I did speak with him. He called, I met with him. He came by and we sat in the office and we talked directly about those, and I pulled no punches with him about that. We talked about that. We talked about the other matters of state. The thing that bothered me again was because he always seems to be pro-military as a pro-diplomacy. And I can tell you, he'll leave those fears. I believe that he will be a diplomat. So in those conversations, I shared my concerns about the statements he made. And he gave me his word. Sometimes when you look somebody in the eye, you got to give it your best judgment. And he gave me his word that diplomacy would always be his first priority. That's very important because we continue. And he assured me, I even called him the day I decided that I would probably vote for him. The vote was already not in question. But I called him to say, Mike, you told me that you wanted to talk to people like me, kind of the moderate voices, to try to get advice. And I hope you'll take me up. I hope I can take you up on that. There's a lot of places to fill. There's a lot of spots to fill within the State Department. The State Department has been demoralized by this president over the last year. There's not there. And the State Department, right or wrong, they are the leaders. They're the global leaders in the world. And we had to fill that vacuum. I said, promise me that you will talk to us and that you will make sure that those things that you do and tells to the world and tells the American people that you believe in human rights, you believe in dignity, you believe in respect. He assured me he would. Now whether or not he does it, we'll see. But here's the other thing, folks, that I want you to all think about, especially when you're judging folks like me in decisions that I have to make every day. Let's look at the alternative. I couldn't look at this vote simply through the narrow lens of prior political statements. My duty, my constitutional duty, is also to consider a lot of other factors in the circumstances that we find ourselves in today. We haven't had a Secretary of State. And I say that we hadn't had a Secretary of State since day one because Rex Tillerson didn't really effectively do that job. So we hadn't had an effective Secretary of State. And look where we are in the world. We're fighting a proxy war in Syria. We've already had to bomb them twice because of their use of chemical weapons. We stand on the verge of an incredible opportunity on the Korean Peninsula that is just ours for the taking. It's got to be the right talk. It's got to be the right diplomacy to make it happen. We may be pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal. That's going to be an issue. It's a huge issue. And then there is the looming trade wars in Europe with China, where China, our relations with Europe and European leaders are somewhat shaky. And then there's Russia. Russia is a huge problem, folks. Make no mistake. Everybody gets bogged down in talking about collusion. Well, let me tell you something. I frankly don't care a damn about the collusion. Those folks are trying to influence this election and every election we have in the United States, and that has got to stop. So in light of all that, we need a chief diplomat, and we haven't had one. So consider the alternative if Mike Pompeo was not done. And I will tell you, I've got my own sources about the job he did as CIA director, and he got pretty good marks in his job as CIA director. And so the alternative is this: for 3 or 4 more months, we wouldn't have a Secretary of State. And so guess who's running foreign policy by themselves? Donald J. Trump and John Bolton. Now, think about that. Neither one of those people answer to the Congress of the United States. Mike Pompeo does. So at the end of the day, I felt like it was my job to vote for him. And I think I am pleased in his first few days that he did those kind of things that I expected. He visited our NATO allies. He visited Israel. He visited Saudi Arabia. And I think as he finally started injecting a little bit of morale into the State Department that for better or for worse, we need to represent us around the globe. And it reminds me, tonight is the JFK dinner. Reminds me of something I read, of a quote from JFK. He said, too often we enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought. I had to put a lot of thought in, and I was not comfortable. But at the end of the day, it was a tough day, and I hope Mike Pompeo proves me right and so many of my detractors wrong. Time will tell. But if he does prove us wrong, he's going to be back before the United States Senate, and there will be other prices to pay. So that was the most agonizing day. The most disappointing day that I've had was when we voted on immigration bills that failed. We voted on 6 different ones. They all failed. When I came to the Senate in early January, right after I got there, the President of the United States said, you know what? We need to figure out how we can secure our borders and do DACA and get Dreamers a path to citizenship and do comprehensive immigration at a later time. He said that in those words. Well, there's a group of senators in the United States Senate called the Common Sense Coalition, which I know seems to be an oxymoron in Washington, D.C. these days. But I was part of that. And for 1 or 2 times a week, we'd meet in Susan Collins' office. Susan Collins, Republican from Maine. We called it Switzerland in her office because we would talk about ways that we could implement that. And there were a lot of pros and cons to everything that was going on. But I will tell you that we fashioned a really good bill. We took exactly what the President said. We listened to the President's plan for border security. $25 billion worth. And you know I campaigned on the fact that I thought a border wall was dumb and a waste of money. But sometimes there's compromise. And his plan called for a part of a border wall, not 2,000 miles, but more or less securing what's already there, doing some other things, and a lot of money in places we do need. Because folks, we do need more border security. There is no question. My buddy Rick Tate's here. Rick used to be the head of customs in Birmingham when I was U.S. Attorney. He'll tell you. And we need a little help down there. And that's what that money was going to go for. It's going to go for drones and technology and more security guards. The one thing that this bill did, we said you can't use this money for internal enforcement. The President didn't like that. In exchange, the other part of that bill was we would give 1.7 million Dreamers a path to citizenship. Kids that have I say they're kids, they're not kids anymore. They're adults, they're members of the military, they're teachers, they're doctors, they're lawyers. They're people that have never known any country other than the United States of America and are just as part of this citizenry as you and I. And it was going to give that path to citizenship. Here's a great example of what we could do, but at the end of the day, when that bill got dropped, the President decided to torpedo it. We saw it coming with the State of the Union when he wanted more. He talked to his hardliners, and they wanted more, things that we just couldn't do. Things that involve diversity visas and things like that we couldn't do. So at the end of the day, he had a proposal, the President had a proposal that only got I think it got about 36 votes. The President of the United States proposal for immigration only got 36 votes. Think about that. There's 50 Republican U.S. senators, okay? And it got 36, 37 votes. We fell short. You needed 60 votes, and we fell short. Unfortunately, about 3 votes short, and it's because the President decided to torpedo it and to use his bully pulpit to bully. And the Homeland Security put out information that was just factually wrong, the most disingenuous press statement I've ever seen a Department of the United States put out. And that was one of the most disappointing things. I'm not giving up on the Dreamers. It's going to be tough. I'm not giving up on that, and neither has other Democrats. And neither have some of the Republicans. But it's going to be tough. Congress often doesn't work until we're on a deadline. And that's bad, but it is the way it is. But I'll tell you the 2 proudest days that I had. The first one was obviously being sworn in. Unbelievable day. I just marvel. Friends that came up, the gallery was packed. I had colleagues coming in, both Republican and Democrat, that were there. My old friend Joe Biden escorted me down. Again, Walter Mondale escorted me down. It was one of those rare moments that is just, you think back and it's surreal. It was an incredible day for us. We had a wonderful time. We stayed out late. We had a great time. I don't know if I mentioned that we stayed out late and had a great time. It was kind of like election night. But then about 3 months later, you know, there's this tradition in the Senate that young, new senators are, and I say young, I'm not young. You know, I keep telling people, they put me on the aging committee. I don't think they put me on there as a senator, they put me on as an exhibit. The tradition is that you're seen and not heard for a period of time. And so for 3 months, I just waited. As a trial lawyer who was chomping at the bits to get into things, I finally said, okay guys, it's time. My staff wanted me to play it kind of safe. They wanted me to talk about Heflin and bipartisanship and how the Senate should operate under regular order. And I did quote Judge Heflin because I think it's part of my DNA that Howell Heflin is just a part of me. And I quoted a part of Heflin that said our Constitution came about through a series of great compromises. It wasn't written by ideologues who clung to their way or no. Compromise and negotiation, the hallmarks of moderation aimed at achieving moderate, centrist policies for our country, should not be viewed as negatives. But my theme was about gun violence. Think about that. Gun violence, not gun control, because I want to change the narrative. But in light of the Parkland shooting, I made a comment that I thought that it wasn't the Parkland shooting that might have been the tipping point for us with regard to gun violence, but it was the Parkland kids. They are the tipping point that we have now started to work. So we worked on that speech. I'd like for y'all to look at it at some point, because it wasn't right or left. It was trying to talk about things that we could actually accomplish. And I talked about the fact that I thought we could do something about background checks and waiting periods and upping the age for semi-automatic weapons the same way we have for pistols. About doing away with the boyfriend loophole. About doing away with the Dickey Amendment that prevents the CDC from exploring and studying gun violence. It does away with a number of things. It helps the NICS system, the background check system. And lo and behold, a couple things did happen during our omnibus budget. But it was viewed through the lens of we can get something done if we can only get away from the rhetoric and quit talking at each other and start talking to each other and start talking about those things that we can agree on and not going into our corners and screaming about each other about the things that we could not agree on. I was very proud of that speech, and I will tell you that it got a lot of good attention, both in this state and around the country. The only negatives that I've heard are from people who obviously didn't read it or didn't hear it and had that knee-jerk reaction. But it's important, I think, that we have those conversations. And it's important that certain voices can lend their voice. And so with that, we've done a lot of things. You know, I campaigned, and you guys heard me so much. Even on election night, I talked about reauthorizing the Child Health Insurance Program, CHIP. I will tell you, I am truly believe, you know, it's one of the first bills I co-sponsored. It was already there. But I believe that bill got passed as part of the omnibus budget bill. And that CHIP program extended for 10 years because the people of Alabama elected Doug Jones and not Roy Moore. I truly believe that. Our new budget does a lot for Madison County. It does a lot for the infrastructure and the military that we've got up here. We're working to do a number of things that the budget that we passed, I think, really will help the state. One of the things in that budget that I am proudest of was something that Senator Kamala Harris and I did together, that we pushed other colleagues in our letters and with the Appropriations Committee. And because of our efforts and because of pushing other folks, we got a 14% increase in the funding for historically black colleges and universities and across this country. Most of it, we have more HBCUs in Alabama than any state in the country. And for the first time in 55 years, you know, we've done some other things too that are probably more symbolic than practical. You have to do those sometimes because I can't control the floor. Mitch McConnell does. So, but it didn't stop me from making sure that I put my name as a co-sponsor to the Voting Rights Act to restore full strength to the Voting Rights Act that got gutted by the Shelby County versus Holder case. It's not stopped me from working on the opioid bill, which may actually pass the Congress. I've done a lot of interesting things. The main thing, though, that I think, and I hope for those of you that help me so much, that while you may be disappointed in a vote here or a vote there, that you'll see is that, well, he's doing what he said he was going to do. He said he was going to be an independent voice. He said he was going to study the issues. And I think that that's all we can ask of our candidates and our public officials, whether they're governor or legislature, county commissioner, city council, or a U.S. senator. All we can do is listen and demand that they do what they say they're going to do, and always support doing what they say they're going to do, even though we might disagree. You know, right now, across this country and across the state of Alabama, Democrats everywhere are raising their hands to run for office. These are fresh voices, many of whom have never run for office before. They're women, they're people of color, they're immigrants, they're energized. They are ready to have their voices heard loud and clear. And I think that what we accomplished together in my election represented a turning point. It showed that our party, that we can compete, and more importantly, we can win, even in so-called red states. We can win if we talk about the issues and we have candidates who won't back down on the issues that we believe in, that are authentic, that will talk to people about issues, and that will engage our voters. Our potential as a party, and there is no group better than the Madison County Democratic Women that knows this, that our potential as a party lies in our capacity to embrace our shared values and our differences. It's not easy when you have a lot of voices at the table. We prove that every day in Congress. Hell, we prove that every day in the Democratic caucus at our luncheon. But when we talk to about issues that matter to people on a daily basis, we win. The other side is not doing that issue. You can only look at what's going on in your television commercials today and understand that there are virtually no issues being discussed in the media right now. We can do that. We focused on kitchen table issues. I know that our candidates here, because I've seen and I've talked to them, they're doing the same thing. They're focusing on health care, jobs, education, infrastructure. We ran on issues of inclusion, not division. It is time we continue to put the politics of division and hatred aside. We've got that momentum, but how we use it is what really matters. A coalition that you built, not me, the coalition that you built was one driven by the tireless efforts of our volunteers, just like all the people in this room. And the party and this new wave of candidates need to stay engaged and energized. And we can do that by focusing on the issues and working to find common ground among ourselves as much as anybody else, and setting policies that create a greater opportunity for all Alabamians. But we have to acknowledge and respect that Democrats across the country, and even within Alabama, are not going to be identical. We need to acknowledge we share a common DNA, folks. You know it's true. We share a common DNA, but like all families, we have differences. We have differences and we come at things in a different way. But just like our blood relatives, at the end of the day, we also know that we have to protect our families. We have to protect and we have to continue to stay energized no matter what happens in our primaries. It's the basic shared belief of Democrats today that I believe is one in which resonates and can resonate again. And I emphasize the word resonate again because it did resonate in the South at one point. And that is that government at its best can be a powerful voice for good, empowering people to better their lives. We share that DNA. We share that belief. And we can do so by rejecting the politics of division and hate, to bring civility to our political discussions, to find common ground in the halls of Congress, coffee shops, among Democratic clubs, family dinners, and perhaps, and maybe more importantly, online, and Facebook, and Twitter, and the other social media outlets. You know, John F. Kennedy also said, and I'm just going, I know, oftentimes when you're talking to Democrats, they don't like to hear some of it. But I think John F. Kennedy, my role as a U.S. Senator, I think John F. Kennedy said it best. He said, let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer, but the right answer. Let us not seek to fix the blame for the past. Let's accept our own responsibility for the future. That's where I see my role. That's what I think a good U.S. Senator does, to try to represent as many people that supported him and also those that did not, because I represent the state of Alabama. And I want to end with a quote from one of my favorite people in the world, one of my favorite Alabamans, who I'm so proud of, Lily Ledbetter. Yes. Lily said, and by the way, we've also sponsored a bill, I've also co-sponsored a bill to get more teeth in that Lily Ledbetter Act that they've tried to chip away at for so many years. But Lily said, you know, I told my pastor when I die, I want him to be able to say at my funeral that I made a difference. But this fight became bigger than Lily Ledbetter. Today it's about my daughter, it's about my granddaughter. It's about women and men. It's about families, it's about equality, and it's about justice. Lily said it all, folks. I remember that quote every time that I walk through the halls of the Senate, every time I walk onto the floor of the Senate, every time I cast a vote, every time I come talk to you, every time I'm driving somewhere and I'm listening to NPR about all the things, every time I see a tweet from the president, and I shake my head, and I shake it again, I think about that quote, because there's no better quote, I think, than what I hope to do as your United States Senator. So thank you all for having me tonight. Jessica, congratulations again to you. Thank you all for all you're doing for this state. Thank you all for all that you have done for me. And this fight is not over. And as Ted Kennedy said at one point, the hope still lives and the dream will never die. Thank you all. Thank you.